All right, everybody. This is an impromptu live, but I just love the topic that we're going to cover. Me and Andrea. Andrea, thank you for being with me,
I'm
taking
excited. It's
advantage
about
of
time.
of the West Coast time, East Coast time combined, and hopefully everybody that's joining in. Please don't be shy to get in the chat and the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. I see we have Gabriel out of Nashville. Nice of you to be with us today. And anybody else, don't be shy as we talk this. But Andrea, we know each other from the Mill Spouse space, AMC, and oh, we even have folks from Brussels.
Nice.
Galvany, thank you for being with us today. Appreciate you being here. So, uh, military spouse. You got the MBA, PMP. So I love this because this conversation coming from somebody that got it and somebody that didn't, right?
Mhm.
And so entertaining. But Andrea, tell us a little bit about your background. We'll get into this, folks. Thomas Pike, my brother from NYC, New York. Thank you for being here.
Nice. Yeah. So I went back to school because I thought I needed to keep growing and doing what I wanted to do professionally. I don't look back. Glad I got my MBA while I was there. They offered the PMP as part of the program, and I always was fairly organized, and it seemed like a great elective to take and just add a few more letters. So all of that was my graduate work. And while I was doing my graduate work is when I found out about what an executive coach was. And I actually stumbled on it quite by accident because people within my coursework, it was an executive MBA program. So we were all working professionals doing this program alongside our 40 plus hour work week. And so I had several people throughout the course of the program come to me and ask for advice. Where I'm up for a promotion. I just went from an individual contributor to a people leader and just had a lot of questions about those transitions. And so I stumbled into executive coaching quite by accident while I was in the midst of all of the other stuff.
Mhm.
And my thoughts or views of certification, specifically for executive coaches or leadership coaches or things of that nature, come from my capstone project was with
Mm,
Gallup, actually.
mm,
So their Strengths Finders brand. It was a pretty intensive project looking at expanding that brand in China and working with what people's views are regarding certifications and specialty areas, especially with regard to leadership and executive training. And so all of my experience smushed together kind of shapes my perspectives on that.
right. No, and it's funny. When you are being raised to a profession, and everybody has a profession because even the hands trades, right? The mechanics, craftsmen, woodworkers, they have their own level of certification that they have to uh, usually center around their job and safety. Um, you have the PMP. I went through a process to get certified. I'm basically a test shy, right? A test taking shy. I have all the educational background, but did not execute the test. MBA was in a program, fully paid, did everything except graduate.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's but we are raised to um and indoctrinated for lack of better words, into a system that has a reward post certification, right? So um, we value certifications. The reason why is because they signify a level of competence, right? The competence, you cannot just say, I have the competence, um, and have your word taken for it, right? You just can't say it. But you come with a MBA and you come with a PMP, and a body has, dumbly, you got it,
At
you
the stamp,
complete it,
right?
right? You got that stamp.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it seems like it would make it easier for you to navigate into corporate and arena and into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
But I know many of MBAs and many of PMPs that are not working.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this is a loaded question. You're asking a mill spouse, so you're adding another layer onto this. Is a loaded question for
Throw it
me.
out there.
But I think because you need the experience. Just having a stamp, it
Mm,
just shows that you can jump through the hoops, right?
okay.
You can train somebody to do the thing, but how they do it, how they execute, how they form relationships and communicate with others is going to dictate whether they are a success or not, right? Just being able to do the task doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to just be able to jump into a role and find success and professional growth within that role. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah.
kind of my thought process on it. And why can't people find jobs? Well, man, I
Nowadays,
that's a whole that's a whole that's a different segment, right?
right.
But
But the job landscape has changed. Right.
mhm,
The landscape has changed. Um, People's mentality around who they work for and why they work for has changed
mhm,
drastically. I mean, you take us 3 years ago, and today there's a lot of people that have chosen not to work on purpose, right? For the
mhm,
sake of their values have changed. They had time to think and say, "Hold up, I was killing myself over here for what?" And so things have changed. But you bring up a good point because there is a thin line and often hard to define from a person that has the workable experience, things that they have done that have resulted in things, but they can't prove it by via a test or an application or a certification. And so, and I'll give you this example. I've been doing what I do for a very long time. I believe that uh, by the words of others that I am doing a good job, right? But I couldn't get into a specific job because they wanted an ICF certification. No matter, it didn't matter that I had this capability backed by testimonials and folks that had thrived under my care. If I didn't have that ICF, and I didn't get the job.
mhm.
So how, and it's one of the dilemmas when you talk about certification. Now, I have seen, and I think I put this on the comment, right? I have seen certified disasters and uncertified masters,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
we
Mhm.
we, we just don't seem to get any ground on that.
Right. And I think a lot of times people are aim they aren't aiming at something specifically, right? They just think that going after this certification is going to be what's going to set them apart. They're aiming at nothing, so they're hitting nothing, right? I don't know, I can't that's not quite the right phrase, but that's the idea. And so they go after, this job and if you don't have all the qualifications, then you might not get it. But if you're aiming after a certain thing and you know exactly what you want and exactly what the qualifications are, great, do it. But 9 times out of 10, you don't have to have all of the certificate, all the stuff to go along with it if you set yourself up properly from the get-go in terms of the networking, getting to know the people within the organization, getting to know what their values are like, meeting, having coffee, seeing how you can, you got to be kind of got to be gritty, right? You got to
Mhm.
really get in there. And I think that's what makes the difference because I feel like people are really put out because they think, oh, I invested in myself. I did all these things. I jumped through the hoops. I got
Mhm.
all the letters. I did the certifications. This is surely going to set me apart. And you and I both know from a leadership perspective that it's going to be how you carry yourself. It's going to be your confidence. It's going to be your state of mind. And it's going to be how others follow you and how they talk about you when you're not in the room that's going to keep you moving right along your professional path. very rarely. I mean, maybe if it's a really big company that only has, whatever the ATS software that's just looking for these three-letter combinations,
Hmm.
then maybe it'll pop, maybe it won't. If you don't have it in the right font, who knows what's
Right.
going on that day? But I don't know. That's my 10 cents on that one.
And I've experienced that in there are times where I have been certified, so I am certified in things, right? I spent a lot of years just getting certification. I got certification burnt out. Number one, investing all of that real estate into those processes, but I found that I made more ground, to your point, by folks that knew me and knew what I could do than I did by getting that certification. And I'm talking about 3 grand and above type of certifications. And it's hard to say, hey folks, you know, this certification is going to get you. A certification isn't going to get you. What at least what I encourage someone, and it's kind of like to what you were talking to. What's the goal? What is it? Now, if you don't know the goal, then that's a whole different ball of wax, right? But what is the goal if you know, and how are you going to employ that certification to feed your goal? Because if it has no place, I'll tell you. So I'm John Maxwell certified. Pretty. It's pretty hefty. Everybody's
Right.
price is hefty, right? Um, and I I love the guy. I love the program. I love the community. But I've done more outside of that certification than I have with, right? And nothing to say about the certification. It's just that it was one of those punch the card type of. I got that, and I never considered, did it facilitate my goal? Did it feed my goal?
Right. Absolutely. And same way, like I did a lot with the Strengths Finders brand for Gallup when I was going through, this was pretty intensive, deep
Hmm.
project, understanding of the brand, understanding what it was and how it was sold and all those different sorts of things. But I knew that getting, one more thing, getting their Strengths Finder master, that was not going to serve me. And I think people also have to enter into these certifications thinking about the long term, because most people don't think about what it takes to maintain this. Are there, continuing education units that they need to earn ongoing? Are you going to have to pay for that? Are you going to be able to maintain that on top of your current role that you have, or is it part of it? Because then you also, if you invest thousands of dollars in training for this certification, taking the exam, going through all those hoops, and you earn it, but then you don't maintain it, well, you just flushed so much right down the drain. And so you really have to begin with the end in mind when you think about a certification. Not only is how it's going to serve you in your professional development and in your professional path, but are you willing to keep watering that? Because it's like a PMP is every 3 years, I think. Yeah, every 3 years. And it's a lot of hours. And you have to figure out a way to earn those, whether it's online, in person, whatnot. Um, so I have a lot of really honest conversations with clients that, 9 times out of 10, I'm like, no, I don't. If you want it, if it makes you feel good, cool. And you have the money to cash in the bank to pay for it, great, good, go for it. But don't think that it's going to get you more clients or get you the raise or get you whatever it might be. I mean, nobody goes, I don't think, I've never experienced this in my life, where somebody goes to the ICF database and like types in, oh, Tucson, Arizona, who are the greatest coaches in Tucson? Like, do people get clients that way? This is asking you. I have no idea. I don't think
Uh,
so.
I don't know either, but I do know that that feature is part of their network type of, framework, where you could
Mhm.
actually, like even with John Maxwell, you could literally say, "Hey, I need a coach, or a speaker or a trainer in Orlando," and you should be able to pull up, "Hey, these people are available in Orlando," and I think the website does facilitate that type of, breaking out. But the chances are that they're going to go with someone that they have seen or they have heard or heard of. And that usually is word of mouth because you did such a good job that people just can't stop talking about you, right? Um, I noticed that you was on base at at an event, and you was, headline, you was speaking. Those things are what pushes you to the next client, and those are the things that push you to the next client. So, but you, to the point of serving you as a professional, you're going to want to, because I was raised in the military, right? I left my house at 18. I was raised in the military, and their system is based on, certifications and qualifications and point systems, right? And so the one that climbs to the top first is the one that gets it. And I remember I was an airman. I was an E3, and I turned in these two books that I had done, right? By correspondence courses in the Navy. I turned in these correspondence courses. I was an E3. They were the basic military requirements for senior and master chief as an E3. Why? Because you gotta go
You got to get after it.
keep getting. And that master chief said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean? What I'm doing? I'm setting the
You got to do
pace
this.
here. I'm setting
Like,
the pace. That's what I'm doing." He goes, "No, you're way ahead. you you haven't even made E4 yet. You talk
mhm,
about E8 and 9, right?" And so it's that mentality of who is the best, who can prove that they have, who is the one that can say, "I did a slew of courses, I'm qualified in this, that, and the other," all for the sake of the qualification, not for the sake of the proficiency
mhm,
or the
mhm.
quality, right? Because quality takes time. And for folks, like, me and spouses and service members, there's an end date to your service, and it comes faster than you think. And then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh my goodness, what am I going to do?" They don't take these military certifications. They don't. So what now? I got to throw this money at, John Maxwell, you
Use it
know,
or lose it, right?
right?
Like
Yeah.
it's sitting there. It's burning
And
a hole
so
in your pocket. Do something,
do
anything.
something to it. And so that led me down a road of that I had more certifications that I could do with. My wall can't contain all these certificates. And but guess what? I'm not using any of them.
Mm, no,
So
and because I think when we are probably, I think you and I probably have the same experience where when we are sitting across from somebody and we are working with them to get better at whatever their professional goal is, whatever we're partnering with them on, they don't like there's no framework. Every single person is different and every single person deserves our individual attention and what in our mind from our experiences we're pulling from numerous clients, numerous situations, all different kinds of textbooks and certifications. It's not one thing fits all. You can't plug them into an equation. It is not a math problem. You can't plug them into an equation and get the answer for them. That's why one of my posts I think I need to write is it's more of an art. It's an art. It's not a science. Like the more certifications you get, kind of the more things get mixed around in your head too, that you're trying to like solve this issue, and it's not an issue to be solved. It's a relationship to be built and to figure out together what's going to best serve somebody. And if all you have is a hammer, everything is going to be a nail, right? And that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You have to do what serves your client the best. And I think that's why I also steer clear of like any one certain thing, one certain framework. I can certainly see efficiencies in applying some project management framework and things like that to helping people think through really big long-term goals that maybe are overwhelming. But I'm not trying to explain to them the PMBOK and why they need to, do
Right.
this to get there. Or so I don't know. It's really interesting to think about when you're sitting across from the people that you're coaching and what they really need and how you can serve them well, if it really fits into any one thing, because I don't think, at least the people I've worked with, it doesn't.
Well,
So,
I mean, we're too dynamic. Yeah, I
mhm,
was telling my wife, I said, the issue in dealing with someone other than where they are right now is that in 5 minutes they can change their mind. So it's always, and for those that are listening, and maybe you're considering coaching, maybe you're considering certifications to be able to help somebody else, however that may be. Maybe you're doing currently mentoring, and you kind of throw in some type of element of coaching, which is nice. Two different things, right? But maybe you're looking to get certified in something to facilitate future work, right? Because that's how we think about it, right? So if I get this certification, I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing that. It's never to, how's it going to help me first, right? Because I need to use this. I need to know it. But we are so dynamic that in a blink of an eye, you can say, I'm not doing that no more. Right? That's people break through. When they break through an issue, it's like, no, you don't have no authority over me anymore. No, I'm not gonna do it. Right?
mhm,
So that dynamic ability to switch on a dime, has to. At least in my head, it plays. Whoa, well, you got to be ready for those, and uh, that is how I say, okay, well, these certifications, if it's to help me understand, is you because most of the time is I get it so that you can understand me, and
mhm.
that's not how it goes.
Right. Absolutely. And I think one thing that we do have to recognize here is to the transitioning service members, veterans, spouses that are thinking about this, veteran spouses, um, we're used to that dynamic, ever changing environment, right? Like we are used to life just changing on a dime. So that does set you up well for it. But then, speaking from my own experience as a spouse, I think we are always constantly preparing for that change. Like for me, that's how all of these letters started stacking up is I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't know what kind of dress. So I just got to keep collecting these things because that's going to make me, ready for no matter what comes down the pike, no matter where we are. I should be able to get a job, throw on some international certifications and whatnot. But you also have to keep in mind, like you're enough. Like I work with clients on that a lot. Is like it's okay to say no. It's okay to push pause and really think on what you need versus utilizing that time and energy in a way that may not serve you long term. It's okay to feel like you need to prepare for this unknown life,
Right.
but don't burn yourself out doing it because then, you just get frustrated and resentful at, you know, the process, the unemployment, the underemployment, all of those sorts of things. Because I've been there, I've sat with that feeling. Um, it's not fun to be in. So just that's my little shout out to the spouses out there that are thinking about all of these certifications and really needing to get them stacked up to differentiate and to strengthen a chop salad resume that we have. You don't have to. There are ways to get the job, to grow professionally without a formal process in place, like a formal certification in hand. Um, so that's my 10 cents
It,
there.
sometimes, so let's talk about uh, the ability for all these things to put you in the category of overqualified.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there has been any showstopper for me, was was that I'm like, over? Hold on. What you mean over? You know, this is the work I could do. But they saw my certifications as a threat of this guy at any time could just pull checks. And then all of a
Yep.
sudden, I'm considering not putting these things in my resume.
Right. Right. And I think, I have had that very experience working, not as a coach, but I also have done some contract project management work. And I've had that experience coming in as a project manager for a team, and the client, uh, very intimidated, just, and they've never even seen my resume, but just how I present and carry myself and, can talk through some of these things. Um, Sort of, gets you in a little bit of a bind where you're shaving off the top like what you can bring. You're selling yourself short in so many different ways. First of all, it starts to impact what you're giving to your team, and how you're serving them and how you're leading. But then it also starts to impact up here, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
should I be less? Should I be less? And I don't think that's the case, but um, yeah, I feel that one a lot, and I think a lot of spouses do too, because they do. I mean, as a whole, way more qualified than civilian counterparts in terms of higher education, certifications, things of that nature, but still they're facing these astounding unemployment and underemployment rates. Um, I that's a big one for me too. So
Yeah, folks, we're talking about executive coaching, certifications. Do you need them? Don't you need them? What should you get? What you shouldn't get? At the end of the day, and I'll tell everybody how I perceived it and how I went about it. It was very uh, th- they were I pursued it for selfish gain. I'll tell you that right now. It was to position myself above the rest, but that was something that I learned in the military, right? I just followed it with it, except that this time it was costing me. And so I put a lot of money behind these things and even had some help in some of them, where and it was just for positioning. It was not for me to be the best of this, that, and the other. I actually, you mentioned this earlier, Andrea. You are enough. And you cannot tell me that in 26 years of serving and going up the ranks to, the most senior enlisted leader of a commander over 1,000 people, that that I wasn't enough. But I had bought into the mindset of I have to prove it. No one's going to believe me because I've been away for 26 years. It's almost like being in prison because nobody, if you think about it, nobody sees you for
right.
26 years. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm here. Hi, I'm Enrique. And they're like, so,
Who are you? What's
so nice, Yeah. And so I um I was feeling like I had to have that ahead of my conversations, that if I opened up the conversation, hey, Enrique, John Maxwell certified, PMP, OCD, whatever it was that they're going to put on there. And
ADHD? We
yeah,
got them all.
yeah,
We have them
anything,
all.
anything, anything to
Yep.
have them say, oh, okay. And
Yep.
then I realized that they didn't even want to hear that.
Mm-mm.
That it's not what they wanted to hear. And so have I converted my thinking to a better way? Yes, by now I have. And so I take all that training and I first apply it to myself so I can understand how it works. And then now it's easier to apply those tools as a resource for the people who are coming to me. And not now for that, I think, okay, I don't think it was worth it's worth the 3 grand and above, because I mean I could have read this thing, but now that I did pay and I did get that, I'm able to use it in the way that it was originally intended for.
Right. Absolutely. I think you touched on something really key there is you feel like you're coming to a table where you don't know anybody, and those letters are going to speak for you in terms of proving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're used to in the military side, you're racked and stacked, like you said, like they just pick off, we need
Yep.
4, these are the 4,
Uh,
you're
yep.
just part of that equation. And so you want all of those letters and that time that you poured in and invested to speak for something, and on the outside it doesn't. I mean, I still want it to, and I've always been on the outside, and in a civilian role, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't. What speaks for me is the networking that I do ahead of time, who I know, how I got my foot in the door. It doesn't show up on my resume. Trust me, I tried. It's only in that actual interaction. And that can be really defeating for, a military spouse that's early in her career, or a young airman that just ETS, did the 8, did whatever, still pretty young career wise, and doesn't know anybody. Like you said, it's like prison. I just showed up and here I am. I got this resume and I have some money to burn on a GI Bill. I'm going to try some stuff. And that's really hard. That is really intimidating to be stepping out into that world. And, sometimes that certification feels like kind of bolsters your confidence, right? And able to put
Mm-hmm.
your foot out there or your thumb out in the air and say, hey, me, hire me. But I just don't think it pans out in the way that people want much of the time.
Well, it's not a magic pill, right? So, you talk about Gabriel said the military theme is still promoting service members to pursue every cert available, like it's another badge, tab, ribbon before transition. And yeah, it's only been 5 years for me, so I remember. And the closer you get to that date, the the pressure is on, because believe me, that last year was, oh my lord, I was doing my degree, I was getting certifications, and all of them were exams, right? And I was just bleeding out for the sake of that. When I leave this and go into the other world, I have to have my degree, I have to have my certification, I have to have it, I have to have it. And it became the most burdensome last year of anything that I've ever done. Instead of me enjoying the fact that, man, you served 26 years, good job, and transition, and it's terrible to say transition in peace, but but
Mhm.
transition with a
Enjoyed
good
the process.
outcome, right?
Like you should be able to enjoy, you would think after 26 years of building this network, being a part of a community, like the biggest small town on the planet, right? Like you were a part of it, and you should be able to reconnect, say goodbye to all those people that you've built and
Mhm.
networked with over the years, and really enjoy the process of, you know, I've grown this, I've poured into these people. These people still call on me now. I remember them when they showed up on day 3, for in processing, and now here they are, whatever the case may be. And you should be able to enjoy that, but having it just like thrown on you, so much pressure, that's tough. I think uh, we talked about a little bit, but what does networking actually look like that really does reward you and pay off in the long run? How can you invest in that for free, and potentially get some of the same benefits or relationships or connections that are, I'm not going to say forsaking, but kind of, by skipping a certification. I feel like a lot of uh, organizations designed to help transitioning service members and spouses are really promoting the networking piece, because we do have that built-in understanding of what each of us is used to, what the ops tempo is, what our life is like, and that willingness to serve one another in having a cup of coffee, informational interviews, being, yeah, sure, put me as a reference on the resume, or, on the online application. Um, I think that seems to go just as far. And that advice that I've been hearing over and over again is much better than the stack up the certifications, burn yourself out, do all you can, spend all of those benefits right away, because you don't know. Like, you've spent 26 years doing this one thing for this one organization, but now outside of the gates, it's a whole, the choice is yours. Nobody's telling you what needs to happen. And so, why burn it out in that last year when you still, for the most part, have quite a few benefits that carry on for a while, that you can start making some informed decisions once you get into that first job, whether it's contract, civilian, normal, W-2, whatever.
Yeah, I have Eric Reisner here. He says he's a U.S. Coast Guard cutter, a Master Chief, transitioning E9 here, feeling that pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm focusing more on networking and building relationships for my coaching business over finishing my master's. And we kind of spoke about this early on, right? So there's no real advice as to or not to. What we're talking, Andrea and I, are possibilities on either side, because this is a decision you have to make that you feel good about, right? That and not just you feel good about, it actually serves you because you know your goal. So if I was to say anything to any of the service members that are feeling that pressure, are you sure about your goal? And do you have that? Is it in sight? And are you, how we do, backfill from where you are to that goal, and how much time you have, and how you're going to do it when you do, how we build processes of, hey, this is how long it takes, this is what we're probably going to have to invest. Is it meeting and feeding the goal that you have for yourself on this next time? And not just for service members, for anybody that's looking at a next step. Is that goal in writing, that you can look at it and adjust and make adjustments? I just told this to my son as we went on our afternoon walk. He's a gamer, right? And I said, okay, buddy, so what's the next thing you want? He's like, well, this. I said, is it a goal? Did you write it down? No, but I know. I said, no, bro. You
Gotta
got to
write it
write
down.
this thing down. Write it
Mhm.
down so that you can see it and you can gauge where your efforts need to be bumped up, where you got to pull back, where you have to put something else in. Do you think these plans and executions come from a proper plan? And Ashley says investing in yourself, however you define it, is the key to moving forward. Yes. Please do invest in yourself. Just do it wisely, and as long as it feeds that goal that
Future.
you want,
Yeah.
I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think on paper, on purpose, with those goals, and make sure they're laser focused, right? I've had a cup of coffee with several, um, mostly service members, but a couple spouses too, that want to know about project management and what that all entails, because that's seems to be, those are the letters that catch a lot of eyes for me
Hmm.
anyway. And what does, why get it, why, and so that's usually one of my questions, like, why do you want it? Well, then I can get a job. Well, it's not Willy Wonka's golden ticket.
Right.
Like, these little letters over here, they didn't open any doors for me. Trust me. I have applied for jobs with all these letters, and I still get not no response. It's not like I get ghosted or whatever just as much as anybody else. So um make sure that you have laser focus of what you want to do with that certification before you start going down that path, especially if you're going to utilize a program like Onward to Opportunity, where you have this one
Mm,
shot, one kill, like
right.
one time. So make sure that you're sure before you jump into it, and that it actually will serve you in the jobs that you want. Look at, pick. I would really, these are my 5 dream job descriptions, or 5 dream job postings. Look at all 5 of them and underline what is in common with all 5 and start aiming for that. If you don't know what you're aiming at exactly, you can't just say program manager or project manager.
Right.
Um, you know, Figure out what it actually takes to be that person. And does it actually require those letters? Or maybe it's something else. There's a lot of other certification like project management. Google has a certification project management thing right now. There are so many popping up, and that's another thing too, is the legitimacy of certification programs right
Mm,
now. Governing
oh, yeah.
bodies, they're popping up everywhere. You can get certified in, I don't know, underwater basket weaving right now. Like anything you want a certification in, there's somebody to sell it to you. And so doing your due diligence and understanding what you're buying, because I think a lot of, you know, service members, veterans, and their families are targeted for scams at a much higher rate than
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
else, because they know that DoD paycheck is coming in all the time. And so it's a pretty sure guarantee that if a scammer gets you, that they're going to get their money. So that's why service members are targeted so often. So make sure that you're really digging in, because once you start spending that benefit, it's gone. You don't get a do-over because you didn't do your homework. And so I think that's I don't know if you've ever heard of that or run into that, but I ran into it with a project that I was doing. I learned a lot about this, where people that were seeking some form of higher education, some certifications, and some trainings, um, that money just went away, and they have nothing to show for it, even if they did the work or participated. There's no easy button on these certifications. That's usually the first step that tells you it's not for real. There's no easy way to get them. Um,
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because I actually am one of those.
mhm,
I really am. During my service, there was a cybersecurity certification. It was called ABCHS, right? Um, and they had levels, and they were doing conferences of the military, and it grew to this mega multi-million-dollar thing. Come to find out that today none of those certifications mean squat, but there were thousands upon thousands of dollars that came from the military for those certifications. The governing body
mhm,
got financially healthy. Um, it was all a fraud, right? It was all a fraud, and they had the military for a long time, and the individual unfortunately decided to end his life over it. But it's it means nothing to no one, and I spent at least 4 years getting all those certs
mhm.
for nothing because
Right.
they don't mean a thing. And so you do have to, that due diligence is something that you should employ on every aspect of you getting something that you're hoping will brighten your future, right? Because that's the hope of these certs. Are they going to brighten my future? They're going to help me get somewhere. And a lot of them are legitimate.
Mhm.
There was no way we could have guessed that this thing was a scheme until later on, and and they go through
Right.
financial, how you call
Bankruptcy.
investigations and
Oh,
things,
yeah.
right? So I mean, then you start like, oh, hold up, but by then it was too late for me, right? I
Right.
was already an ambassador. Yeah,
Right.
I thought that was the biggest thing.
Right. You're talking
Ambassador,
about it.
what? So
Uh,
anyway, that did happen to me,
mhm,
and it happened to all the different people that actually got those certifications that were paid
mhm,
through the government. So yes, for the sake of my time, I wish I would have done something else. It was yeah, that's it,
right.
and a lot of wasted money. So you have all these certifications that have come up, right? They come up. Here lately, a lot of other groups have popped up with certification. Especially during this time of COVID, there's been a lot of issues that have come up through isolation, through the multitudes of deaths, the financial, situation, the housing market. I mean, everything just got piled up in the last 3 years. And so there's a lot of things that have come up and have birthed from those, right? You just, for those out there that are listening, due diligence is the word of the day when you
Mhm,
talk about certifications.
for sure. For sure. Whether you need it or not, whether it's legit or not, there's a lot to it. Don't just sign up for it because you hear, recruiters saying all these buzzwords about what they need right now. What they need right now is a warm body. What do you need? That's what you
Mm,
really have to think about is what do you need? What do you want? And chase that. Don't go after what you hear about just one time off the cuff. I think that's really at the heart of it is what do you need to be what you want to be, to do what you want to do, to feel good doing it. Um, don't worry about you what anybody else says at the outset until you do your due diligence, do your research, have some cups of coffee with people that have been there, done that, not
right.
just for a year, but for 10 years, 12 years, 20 years. Um, so, yeah, for sure. I just had from my financial peace class that I'm teaching right now, one of the students in there, her whole college degree is one of those universities that was, lost the accreditation and chapter whatever
Yeah.
is no longer. And so you can't ever know on the outset, but taking that time would really don't just jump into something.
Yeah. And, and like we said, this is not a for or against. It's just that it has to truly serve you. It really has to serve you. I got plenty of certifications that made me feel good. That was it. That
Mhm,
that was the extent of its impact.
mhm,
And so, if you're doing it to feel good, just remember that once you do, that road is over, right? If
mhm.
it was just to feel good, because you'll feel good,
Right,
and that's it.
right.
But if it's part of your plan, it's part of your way of making sure that you can actually address things that come up. Like, because some industries are, if you don't have a CEC in the engineering field, you're not gonna get it
Right.
right. Right? There's some PMP positions that I've seen. I mean, that's it. That's what they want. After that, you have to, show yourself worthy. But there's some PMP that will also, if you look at it, will opt for the experience.
Mhm,
Okay, maybe you got a shot if that's what you want. But don't
mhm.
get it just because it covers all the bases, because it might, you might get worked out from a person that got the experience, right? Because that to them is probably speaks more. But does it meet your goal? Does it feed your purpose? And is it sound, financially, right? I
Mhm.
wouldn't. I thank the good Lord that a lot of that money was not my own, right? I
Right.
did it in a time where I was actually using
Right.
somebody else's money, but nonetheless, it's thousands upon thousands of dollars that somebody's paying.
Yep.
So you might as well use it where it should. It will serve its most purpose, right?
Right.
Um,
And it's the additional cost of being away from your family,
mm,
a lot of times you don't take that into account if you've had a role where you've been traveling a lot, you've been deploying a lot, whatever that might look like for you. Um, what do you want this next chapter to look like in terms of, are you going to be there when you can be for your family, or are you going to be piled away in an office somewhere hitting the books and trying to jam all this in? Does that make sense for you in this season? um, I don't know. That's to everybody, to each their own. When I was working with some young airmen, they're leaders in the squadron, just an amazing, phenomenal group. One of the first questions I asked was, how many years do you have left? And one of my parting thoughts was, nobody's looking out for your professional development except for you and a coach, I guess, if you get it. So we're on your
mhm.
side too. But that's it. So you have to really think about what you want, and you and I, we're trained to be on somebody's side to help them weigh all of those pros and cons, and help talk through those situations and what really makes the most sense, and be reflective of what we hear from our clients, because sometimes what they think isn't what they're saying, and what they're saying doesn't go along with their thinking, and their actions sometimes are mixed from all of that too. And so helping to sort through that sometimes is, that's why you get a coach. Sometimes is to sort all of that out.
That's right. And we're coming up on our hour here. Um, Andrea, first of all, I want to mention this. Congratulations on making the finalists on the Rosie Network Entrepreneur of the Year Award. That's going to be great. I get to see all of you because I'm last year's Media Professional of the Year. So you will see me congratulate
Nice.
the class at graduation. But congratulations on that. There's so many people on that list that has done great work. Some that we both know,
Yep.
throughout the time that we've been working in this space. But kudos to all of those that are on that list. There are probably people that are looking into getting a person that can steer them through this process of certifications. You know, can I get this or should I get that? And there's always an opportunity for them to reach out. What would be the best way for them to reach you if they wanted to talk to you about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm on LinkedIn pretty much every day. So that's a great place to keep in touch, connect with me, follow me. And if you're not ready to send the message yet, or like ask the question, I post a lot about this sort of stuff and having these sort of discussions. So you might even see a post pop up in your feed answering the exact question you have. But more than happy to connect with anybody, answer any questions through DMs. I also have a website, www.thetimegroup.com. If you want to just put in your contact info there, and I can reach you through email if that's a preferred method, or I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm a
Yeah,
little
I'm
bit
just
of everywhere.
I'm putting that in the comments right now, so that they can have the link to the website. But Andrea, thank you for sharing this about an hour with me. It's West and East Coast together for an
Mhm.
hour, and I appreciate all you do on the coaching side, but I also appreciate what you do on the military spouse side. You're actually showing the capabilities of a military spouse, that you don't have to be in this bubble that unfortunately the military creates for you. And I wish it wasn't like that, but it's been like that. Hopefully we can get that change. But I know there's a lot of legislative moves to open doors more for that military family, the military spouse, to make something of their own. And you surely have done that on your own, and with with the help of your supporting cast. But thank you for being with me today, folks. If you have any questions, you can always put them in the comments. Andrea and I will go back sometime and look to see if there were ever any issues specifically addressed there. But thank you for joining us from wherever it was that you was tuning in. I hope that the conversation was enlightening to you. There's so much more that you can discuss about it, but the gist of it is it going to serve you? Do you have the financial capacity for it, right? Because you don't want to get in the hole. Um, uh, are you going to use it?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not, you're wasting your time. Um, but
Are you going to
ultimately,
maintain it?
and that's
You
the
know,
key after people
mm-hmm.
don't
If you
understand.
invest in it, are you going to maintain it?
Right. And every one of those programs call for maintenance. I'm telling you right now. So it's a lot to consider, but thank you for being with me today, Andrea.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it and look forward to um, meeting some more people through this little chat and hopefully answering some more questions if any come up anytime in the future. Always happy to give my 10 cents. It's probably what it's worth.
All right, folks. We'll see you at another impromptu. She
Who
was just
knows when
asking me,
it'll
"What
come
is
up?
this?" You do it all the time, but any issue that may come up that I think, hey, we should really talk about this. I will definitely throw these impromptus. But we'll see each other on Aloha Friday Live when we normally are out here on the live stream. But thank you all for being with us today. Have a great week.